Video game storytelling compared to other mediums is still in its infancy, and if you ask me, I think it took a wrong turn some time back. How many games have you played in the last decade where you spent more time watching a story unfold than actually playing it out? The point of a video game story is to play it. You don't watch it or read it, you play it. Your actions should drive the story forward, but so many games over the years have failed to realise this, and in a sea of failed video game storytelling, it's the hidden gems like Dreamweb that remind me of video games' potential to tell compelling interactive stories.
I know by now you're expecting a conclusion to the Learn Dark Review series, and it is coming, but I need to take a break and work on that review, and what better way than to talk about the obscure classic Dreamweb, and then after that, Shadow of Memories. Now, I only found out about this game because one of the viewers for I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream left a comment saying, if you like this game, then you should try Dreamweb, and so I gave it a go. And I'm glad I did because this game is awesome for so many reasons. It has one of the best video game stories I've ever seen, and accompanied by some very atmospheric music. Its over-the-head approach to point-and-click game in standard front-facing view is very unique to that genre, and it was inspired by one of my favourite films of all time, Blade Runner. But there's just so much to talk about with Dreamweb, so let's start with this game's story.
This game starts in the halls of the Dreamweb. Now, the Dreamweb is a place that sits next to our reality and helps maintain the balance between good and evil through our dreams. Our protagonist, Ryan, has been dreaming of various disturbing things, but the most frequent dream he has is of the 7 evils that will destroy this world if nothing is done to oppose them. One night, Ryan is finally called upon by the Dreamweb elders and transported via the Dreamweb to talk to one of them. Ryan and the elder don't say that much to each other. I mean, what can they say? Our hero has been suffering with nightmares about his destiny for so long that by the time he's finally called upon to fight this evil, he has already come to terms with it, and so accepts his destiny to kill the 7 evils with no resistance. Usually, video games involving a dude with a chosen destiny normally go 2 ways. The hero at first doesn't want to embrace his destiny and then hums and haws about it before finally accepting it, or they accept it but spend all their time introspectively analysing why they were chosen and what it means for them to have a destiny. These 2 common hero scenarios are all well and good, but we've seen them a million times. Thankfully, Dreamweb breaks free from this storytelling cliche in video games and offers something new for its time.
The real beauty of Dreamweb's story is that the entire game involves you doing something to drive it forward, and the few times we had to watch a cinematic or read some text, this game was still involving and didn't drag out. The reason why this game is so absorbing is because there's still some room for self-interpretation. Now, what do I mean by self-interpretation of this game's story?
Well, you can take this game's story at face value for what it is, or if you choose to dig a little deeper into this game's story, then you might believe that Ryan is suffering from some kind of psychosis, and everything to do with the Dreamweb and the 7 evils is all in Ryan's head. Whether his destiny is real or not, he still believes he has one, and if that's the case, then all you can do as a player is just play along and enjoy this experience for what it is. What helps Dreamweb keep its momentum is the game's characters. They don't drag out conversations needlessly, and because of that their vocal performances shine, even if the voice acting isn't really all that good. For the time, the voice acting in this game is respectable, and definitely better than most early 90s video game voice acting.
Something that may surprise you is that I'm playing and recording footage for Dreamweb from my Dreamcast. Without going too technical, let's just say Fraps and ScumVM don't get along, and I could not for the life of me get this game to run in DOSBox. So I downloaded a Dreamcast cell booting ScumVM disk image, with this game already loaded on it. Playing this game on the Dreamcast was the easiest way to get footage, and a great way to play this game from the comfort of your own couch. It does take some time getting used to using a controller over a mouse, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
On the subject of getting ahead of ourselves, let's talk about this game's over-the-head view. An over-the-head perspective is very interesting. It's used for a lot of older style RPGs, but not usually for point-and-click adventure games. I don't think there's a whole lot of room to create an overly visual game from an over-the-head perspective. Which is why I imagine almost all 2D point-and-click adventure games use a more stylish front-facing view than an over-the-head one. But despite this game's choice of perspective, the graphics are good, people and places look like they're meant to look, and the game succeeds at creating a dark cyberpunk world. But there are some advantages to the overhead view. First thing, you have a better feel for space and distance, as everything space-wise is presented consistently. And another advantage is that everything can be clearly seen, which makes searching for clues or items much more easy, and even more so thanks to the search window. The search window is a closer look at what your cursor is pointed at, and is a handy feature in a genre known for its pixel hunting. So if you're going to force a player to pixel hunt, then you might as well make it easier for them to do that. I'm surprised more point-and-click adventure games don't use this feature, and I think Dreamweb is the only point-and-click adventure game to ever use a zoom window.
If you really want to window into our protagonist Ryan, then you must read Diary of a Madman, the booklet that came with this game's original big box. Piracy has always been an issue in video games, and even with all the safeguards in place now, it's still a problem. What developers did back then to make piracy more difficult for computer video games was include something in the game box that was needed to play the game that also couldn't be easily replicated. Monkey Island 2 had its code wheel, and Dreamweb had its Diary of a Madman. So however you come by this game, make sure you at least have scans of Diary of a Madman, the booklet that came with the original game. Diary of a Madman is a great read that gives you insight into Ryan's state of mind just before this game starts. But there are also clues in the text to help you in this game. At least 2 or 3 of the puzzles can't be completed unless you read Ryan's diary. If you're using a guide, then this isn't really an issue, as most guides include solutions to these puzzles. Or if you're playing a cracked version of this game from way back, then this isn't really an issue, as all you have to do is press enter to bypass these types of puzzles whenever they appear. If nothing else, this diary is a great read and helps to expand the world beyond the confines of this game, but let's get back to talk more about the actual game itself. One of the coolest features of this game is that every item can be picked up. This adds to the immersion and keeps you real, because you have to have a serious think before you pick up an item or not. But on the flip side, as you only have so many item slots, you have to take a calculated guess of what items you may need, as you can't carry every item in this game. You also need to remember what items you didn't pick up or where you dropped them, just in case you need them later on, so expect to do some backtracking. But there are a few moments where you don't have the luxury of going back to pick up an item, so I would suggest you save frequently. We can't forget this game's dazzling array of mid-90s electronic music. This soundtrack is heavily inspired by Blade Runner and beautifully captures its subtleties and grandness, while still doing its own thing. This game's intro, along with its music, is beautifully done and pays its respects to Blade Runner. What makes Dreamweb is its soundtrack, and here's an example. What we have here is a typical scene in this game that's oozing atmosphere. Now take away the music. Yep, you pretty much killed this game. There was even a limited release of this game's soundtrack way back, but trying to get hold of a copy now is almost impossible. It is a shame the soundtrack is hard to get hold of, but c'est la vie. As with any retro titles, they have their issues, and this game is no exception. I wasn't bothered by this game's problems, but I know others would be. But luckily I could only find 3 real problems, and hopefully despite them you'll still be able to enjoy this game, but what are they? The first was the zoom window. I know I said the zoom window was a cool way to help search for items, but even with the zoom window it's still just pixel hunting, only now just magnified. Yay. Even zoomed in, it's still frustrating having to comb through all those pixels to find something that's just made up of a few pixels. The second issue was the audio levels towards the end of this game. Throughout this game, the audio quality for dialogue was fine for the most part, and I played plenty of point and click adventure games with much worse audio than this game, so this isn't really an issue. But what was an issue was that one of the conversations with one of the last evils right at the end of this game was ruined because the music was way louder than the dialogue. There is no option to adjust the audio levels, and even if there was an option, I should not have to adjust them for just one section of this game. And finally, the last thing to mention, this game is rather on the short side. On my first playthrough I completed this game in just under 4 hours, and around 2 hours on my second playthrough. I don't know if a short playtime is really a good or bad thing. On the one hand, a short playtime is handy for people with busy lives, or those who like short adventures. But on the other hand, the people who played this game way back then might have felt cheated at paying full price for a 4-hour game. All these issues are not because of incompetence, but more to do with inexperience. The small team that made this game did an amazing job, especially when you consider that this was most likely one of their first major games. And because of that, you guys have my respect, especially Neil Dodwell. Neil Dodwell is the creative genius behind this game, and also the reason why this game is free to download at scumvm.org. As much as I appreciate this game being free, I would have happily paid a few dollars for it on GOG.com. And just on the off chance someone at GOG is watching this review, can I suggest an idea? Hey GOG, since you have free games on your site, and occasionally give away games, then why not include this amazing game on your site as a free game, along with its soundtrack and other supplemental material? Just an idea. So, my final thoughts. Dreamweb's direct-to-the-point approach to storytelling allows you to take in this world at your own pace and to draw your own conclusions. Most games spend way too much time over-explaining a story, and once the mystery is revealed, you pretty much kill the point of any experience. And to top it off, this game is a point-and-click adventure game, so right away it's walking a tightrope, as it doesn't take much to make or break them types of games. So with all that in mind, I give this game the thumb approval. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.